Welcome to the first long-form interview for Access All Areas. In this episode, I got to speak to Holly Fowler, the founder and CEO of Wable. Wable is a social app made specifically for the neurodivergent community. It works by connecting people together for dates, friendship, and employment opportunities, all in one place. Holly and I discussed the societal challenges of dating with a disability, why media representation matters, and how to really build an accessible app. If you enjoyed this new format, make sure to slide into our DMs and let us know. Without further ado, here's Holly. My first question to you is that there's been a lot of research done on the topic of dating with a disability, probably way more than a lot of people may assume, which speaks to a representation issue that we can touch on in a bit later. But I found that research suggests that there is a swipe left bias against people with a disability, which can result in them hiding their disability until, say, trust is established between someone they might match with.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of this trend? Or do you feel that this is changing over time?
Yeah, interesting question. And I hear from so many people in our community that do really feel this. I think, in simple terms, yes, I do think the swipe left bias is real. I think that's because traditionally modern dating social apps have rewarded really quick judgments and really quick swipes that aren't focused on like intentional connection. And I think because disability still carries stigma in society, a lot of neurodivergent people or people with disability do unfortunately feel like they have to hide parts of themselves because through fear of being dismissed and not being seen as a whole person. So I think our community experienced this a lot. Um, a lot of the time they speak to us, are joining Wable for the first time and have had experiences on traditional dating and social apps that haven't been so pleasant. Through really just kind of having like a monkey on their back of feeling like this huge part of me is feeling like something I have to disclose as if it's wrong, um, which just adds so much pressure and anxiety to a situation that's already confronting. Like it's really hard to put yourself out there on a dating, a social app, or go on a first date or meet a new friend for the first time without feeling like without feeling like you have this part of yourself that you're going to have to disclose. And because of the way that society is shaped around neurodivergence and people with disability, a lot of the time our community are very used to being dismissed, very used to not having their needs met. And I think this does unfortunately translate into modern sort of dating and social apps and that pressure to mask. I think that's why places like Wable are so important, because there should be more communities and more spaces where people can come and just be themselves as they are without feeling like that's wrong. Because I think that that's a lot of what our community unfortunately really feel. I mean, I do think the tides are changing slowly. I think there is more visibility and there's more conversation, importantly, around ableism. And more people are open-minded and intentional about dating. But yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think the progress feels a little uneven. I think awareness is growing, and that's important, but I think society has a lot of work to do in that place. I don't think it's people, neurodivergent people or people with disability that are the ones that need to do the changing. I feel that it's everyone else and the platforms that are out there and should be supporting them. Yeah.
Something that I found very interesting, especially in terms of modern dating being it's all app based. You're speaking to strangers. I think I'm 35. I think not too long after I turned 18, like I started going to bars, that dating
Yep.
started shifting to an online like exclusive platform. I think some that
Mhm.
now that the idea of approaching someone in public is like almost scandalous.
Oh, it's
So
so yeah.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
I imagine there's almost this. It can both be like a boon and also a bit of like something to kind of another barrier to get past in terms of I can kind of pick and choose when I disclose this, so I can kind of circumvent any kind of bias someone might have towards my disability. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I feel like based on like my own experiences and experiences of other people I've kind of read about, is that then there's an anxiety around, well, when do I reveal this? When will
Yeah.
someone might think that maybe I'm hiding something from them?
And when you put all of that together with just like the natural like anxiety around meeting someone new for the first time, whether that's a first date or a new friend or anyone, and couple that with all that extra thinking that you have to do. I mean, unfortunately, it's no surprise that our community feel lonely and are experiencing high rates of loneliness because like with all of that going on, I can understand why a lot of people would be like, this is just too hard. Like I'm not even going to bother. I hear that a lot. By the time people have reached Wable, they're like, oh, this is so great. Like, because I can meet other people that are like me and I don't feel like I have to I mean, it's expected that, by being in this community that I am neurodivergent or I do have a disability. So there's a level of freedom that comes with something as simple as just that, being able to just be yourself. Um, and I think better connections are formed when you level the playing field like that, when everyone has the opportunity to feel that level of comfort, because it's already so anxiety inducing to put yourself out there. So when you lay it out like that with what you just said, it's so obvious to me, um, why this has been an issue for so long. Um, but it's not an issue about the people themselves, it's everyone else. It's everyone else that has to be like, okay, well, how are the systems that I'm working in, or the communities that I'm meeting people in, how can we do better by allowing people to have the freedom to be understood and just be themselves. Like I just think it's so unfair that people have to feel like that. We all think differently, whether we're neurodivergent, neurotypical. Why is one seen as lesser than or more favorable than the other? I think society in as a whole has a lot to answer for sort of creating that society being that way. I just think it's unfair. But in a positive note, I do feel like we are seeing more and more communities pop up. People are leaning more into more intentional dating. And so I hope that ripple effect means that more people in our community um, feel welcomed and understood and don't have as much pressure to mask. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't think we had a long way to go.
It's
Yeah.
interesting how you kind of talk about that there is a almost amorphous and perhaps even existential kind of challenge with like society kind of shifting. You see those changes kind of bit by bit in terms of like everyone's getting on board. It's not just up to say people within the disability community are the ones to make the changes. Everyone has to make that
Yeah.
change, which I
Yeah.
totally agree with.
Totally. And I think um I think sometimes it's the neurotypical people that complicate it. And especially like I've watched so many interactions, like we host like in-person speed dating and friending events for the community to get off the app and meet in real life. And I think that's really important. But the cool part about that is I watch the interactions, I listen to conversations, and I'm like, I think the neurotypicals are the ones that making dating like more complicated. I think there's a lot of guessing, a lot of game playing, ghosting, all those things that are really complex and annoying about dating. But what I notice particularly about people on the autism spectrum is like they really value honesty. They are inherently loyal. Um, so I'm like, I don't know if I feel like it's the neurotypical people that are making it a little more complicated. And I actually think we can learn a lot um, from people on the spectrum when it comes to dating and just being authentic and being honest and all those things that are really key pillars to healthy relationships. I think Love on the Spectrum was a prime example. I hope we see more examples in pop culture and major media. But yeah, I actually think if people were more open-minded, you could probably learn a thing or two if you allow yourself to. And I mean, I always say if you meet one person on the spectrum, you met one person on the spectrum. But that's a commonality that I've seen and witnessed and experienced for years, having worked in Wable now for so long. So yeah.
In fact, let's just make it official. It's the neurotypicals. Like, they're the
Yeah,
ones who are
yeah, we're
mustering it.
blaming you guys. Exactly. No, and I genuinely say that that might not make me so popular, but I believe that to be true. So,
Yeah.
no, I think we could learn a thing or two if people take the chance to actually listen to experiences, and I think that's I think it's as simple as that. The better you can listen, surround yourself with people in the community and genuinely listen. I think that can make a huge difference.
I mean, it's kind of, I feel it kind of boils down to empathy. He
Yeah,
knew that like, forming romantic connections requires a little bit of like proactive empathy. Um,
exactly.
that kind of leads to like the next kind of major like topic I was keen to dive into was this idea of, I guess, like normative behavior and masking. And a lot of the other research I've been looking at kind of revealed that people with disability attempt to perform normative behavior or kind of masking to kind of seem particularly classically feminine or masculine. Um,
Mm,
really kind of to be viewed as a kind of as a viable romantic partner, especially again when you're kind of presenting on apps as like, oh,
hmm
like I kind of tick all the boxes in terms of like what the standard is for someone who might want to date me. And
hmm
I guess I'm curious, like, have you heard like stories like this in starting Wable? And I
Yeah.
guess more broadly, like, at least why do you think this kind of happens?
Mm. I agree. I think it comes up a lot. I think a lot of people with disability or neurodivergent people feel that pressure to perform like very traditional femininity or masculinity roles because I think having a disability already marks them as different. And I think fitting clear gender norms can make them feel like they're going to be seen as more acceptable or desirable, which I think it's really sad that our community feel that way. But I think again, it comes back to their experiences more broadly in society and feeling like they have to check a box to be accepted. I think I think the community does this because it's a way of managing stigma, um, especially in dating spaces. Um, because I think traditionally dating spaces, dating apps, um, have kind of relied on very narrow ideas of attractiveness and gender identity. So yeah, in short, yeah, I think that it comes up a lot. And again, I feel strongly that the cause of that is not the community themselves. It's the it's everyone around them and the systems that are supposed to support them. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And so does Zelda, don't you, Zelda?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this like, cute little guest we've got here.
This is my research assistant. So
Yeah, yeah.
she's the one who's come up with all the questions, haven't you, darling?
He's like, yes, that sounds good. Next question.
Wait, I think what you say there is really interesting, and I think you're gonna touching on something that people know or acknowledge is like taken for granted, but are kind of afraid to touch on, almost think of it as taboo, like the idea of like how do people like have an unconscious bias towards like what is deemed physically attractive or what are
Yep.
like traits that are deemed attractive in terms of like a potential long-term romantic partner, or even just if you're kind of pursuing something that's more of like an ethically non-monogamous situation, for example, like the whole
hmm
range of types of romantic partnerships you can have. And so again, kind of challenging, I think, that understanding of, well, what is normal, and sometimes like normal is, well, quite frankly, nonsense because everyone is
Yeah.
different and even
What
like their
is?
desires and needs change.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think and you think about traditional like dating and social apps have always rewarded what society views as quote unquote normal or quote unquote desirable or attractive. And a lot of the time, traditional apps have, those profiles that are deemed that way are the ones that get all the likes and they're fed up the algorithm. And then everyone else who maybe doesn't fit that quote unquote, like, the exact model of who you're looking for means that more and more people are just fed lower down the algorithm, given
Yeah.
less opportunities to connect with people, um, because of like society's BS expectations of who's desirable and who is worthy of connection. And so I think like for the one main difference I talk about with Wable and what I'd like to see more is that our algorithm is equal and everybody is on the same playing field. Yes, of course, you can filter out people by gender identity and location and all those interests and things like that that matter. But as opposed to one profile getting this many likes and other profile getting this many likes, and that determines how often you appear in the stack or how many opportunities you're given to meet people. There's none of that. It's everybody's on the same playing field, and that's the way it should be. It should be that way for everyone, regardless of whether you're on the spectrum or not, or you have a disability or you don't. I just think it's unfair, and quite frankly, it's just so disappointing that it's been that way for so long.
And I absolutely agree with you. And I think at least the way I think about it, like in a broad sense, I consider like that human connection, whether it be romantic or platonic, is like a human necessity. It's a human right, as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned. A lot up there with like housing and food, and connection is
exactly.
so important. We're inherently social creatures. We band together. So
Yep.
I think if we have these almost invisible systems that kind of rank or prioritize certain kinds of people, like that can feel demoralizing. I think it's high time that we all start thinking about how we kind of make that way more equitable.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And I think this kind of rolls into my next question in regards to representation. And I'm curious, like your thought. I have a feeling, what your answer will be, but I guess how important do you think representation is when it comes to removing these biases and improving the dating experience for people with disability?
I think it's the most important. I think that's why I think Love on the Spectrum really sparked a movement. I think Australia is doing really quite well in terms of media representation. I think about like the Assembly on the ABC, and then there's Better Date Than Never, and all these new shows that are coming out. I think of Michael Theo now and Austin playing the lead role, and I'm looking forward to seeing who starts more conversations about neurodivergence. But yeah, I always think back to Michael from Love on the Spectrum. I'm so proud to see just how far he's come since finishing up on Love on the Spectrum. It just goes to show how much people are really capable of if given the opportunity to have their needs met, um, which is not very hard. And actually, a lot of the accommodations that people ask for benefit everyone, not just people with disabilities.
Like I think that show um, really showed again that idea of like,
Hmm.
people with disabilities don't have to be wrapped up in bubble wrap. Like they don't have to be kind of put in the corner and babysat. Like they have very clear desires they want to express in terms of romance and even like sex. Like people want to have those physical connections, and it's quite frankly unfair to assume or even try to deny someone that, based on like, you know again, like BS kind of biases, or like trying to kind of perform in more normative ways. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and it all goes back to just bias around the community. People, I think, wrongfully assume, oh, just that person has a disability. They're probably not interested in relationships or having sex. And I'm like, well, where the hell did you get that from? Because that is far, far from the truth. Um, but it's more important that we actually educate the community about what's important and keeping safe, as opposed to leaving them out of the conversation. That's the number one thing that, by the way, that I hear all the time from communities. Like, I just want to be treated like everyone else. And how simple is that? I speak to a lot of neurotypical people all the time. And they I love when I'm actually asked questions about like, okay, but how's the community feel about dating and exploring their sexuality and having sex and exploring relationships and all those things where they haven't sort of been in circles around having those conversations. And the number one thing I always say is just speak to someone exactly how you want to be spoken to. Um, it's really like pretty simple when you put it like that. And most of the time, that's what our community says. I just want to be treated like everyone else. Just because I have a disability or I'm on the spectrum doesn't mean I don't have desires, or I'm not sexual, or that I am not interested in dating. It's like it's so often just completely the opposite. And I just don't even really know where that started, and it's just like completely ridiculous to me. But um, and it's a shame, because then it means the community are left out of even more conversations that are important to them around safety, around consent, around all these things that are important to everybody. Yet so often they're just excluded from the conversation. It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
I love that you brought up those bigger conversations around safety and consent, making it simple and just asking people, hey, how do we talk about this? How would you like to be spoken to about this? actually then opens the door to then these very important conversations that kind of come naturally from that. And so then when people, you know, either maybe are anxious themselves and don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, or they just don't know how to approach it, then that pathway is never explored because then those conversations aren't had around safety and consent.
Yeah.
And so it's a trickle on effect, right?
And by the way, I think a lot of people with disabilities or on the spectrum would rather people open the conversation by saying, "Hey, I don't really know how to start this conversation, but like, can I speak freely with you? I hope I don't say, I'm trying not to say anything wrong here, but can I talk to you about it?" I think most people would really appreciate that as opposed to just not even trying to have the conversation at all.
I'm very curious to kind of learn about your own experiences as like someone with ADHD and
Mhm.
how, if that has kind of shaped your approach to designing Wable's experience. Because
Yeah.
I guess up to this point, we've spoken a lot about in general what it's like to be, like someone who's neurodivergent or who's like has personal disability out in the world dating. But then the actual method of dating, especially app-based dating, is
Hmm.
a whole other beast. So, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to learn a bit more like how has that, yeah, like approached your design to label.
Yeah, I'm laughing because it's made it difficult. Because
Yeah.
if you, uh, yeah, my ADHD means I'm inherently a perfectionist. And if you're trying to launch any type of business, especially an app, that's a very difficult place to come from. Um, I am also my own enemy. I'm my own worst enemy. If I could get my words out. And that means really critiquing every single feature of the app, maybe even more so than the next person. Not just criticizing the app itself, but criticizing myself. And so that has made the journey equally exciting and difficult at the same time. Um, the best thing we did though, early days, actually building the app, is we built a focus group of beta testers of all different people who are neurodivergent, people with ADHD, dyslexic people, autistic people, who formed our first beta test group. And, the best thing about neurodivergent people, particularly people on the autism spectrum, is that they will give you their feedback and it will be honest. And when you're building an app and trying to genuinely shape the app for the community, that is worth its weight in gold. The community was so excited that something was built for them in mind that they were like, hell yeah, I'll jump in and support. Like, I'll give my feedback. I'll be the first bunch of people on the app. And that was really incredible because I can wholeheartedly say that our app was built from the ground up with the community involved, and will continue to be. It will continue to evolve as our community evolves. There's a range of different things that are different about Wable. It's focused on much more slower and intentional connection, as opposed to just quick matches and that kind of thing. We have heightened security measures, which is super important. We have the ability to change looks, color themes inside the app for people with sensory preferences. Question wheels to start a conversation and help continue a conversation because sometimes it's really hard to know what to do next. And Jodie Rogers inside the app is incredible. She gives video resources on managing rejection to what to expect out of a response time or um, meeting up with someone for the first time. What do I do? What do I say? What do I wear? All those things that weigh so heavily on our community and on everyone. Um, those tools I think really help alleviate a lot of that pressure that people feel. But aside from the design focus, and which has been a huge part of it, I think the biggest thing and the most simple thing is that the community know this is built by and for them. And so when that happens and you can just join and be yourself and not have to mask, that makes the biggest difference out of almost any design choice that I could make. And I think that, you know, accessibility in tech as a whole and on other apps or shouldn't just be like a nice to do or an add-on that people try and tack on at the end just to say that they're doing it. It needs to be intentional and genuine and from the get-go. And I'm really proud that we've been able to do that and continue to. Like, our community reach out to us all the time with ideas. and they're really fantastic ideas. I'm like, y'all looking for a job? Like, come and join us. So yeah, no, I've been super lucky in that department that our focus group have been very much so hyper focused on the app and new ideas and features and improvements. So it's I'm still evolving as much today as we were when we started.
I really like that idea you mentioned there about how a lot of times accessibility is kind of spot welded onto something at the end. Like,
Yeah,
oops, don't forget this. And
yeah,
there's a huge difference in the end product, and you can tell it's the foundation rather than like an
for sure.
appendix.
I even just think back to when we were talking about representation before, and I missed talking about it, but even Autistic Barbie was like a cool example that I saw pop up, and look, and there was so much conversation around Autistic Barbie for better or worse on the internet, and there always is. There's always people going, okay, this is great, and there's always people going, this is ridiculous, or there needs to be more. And I kind of was on the side of like we can acknowledge that Autistic Barbie is really important for a lot of people, and that this is a great thing, while holding space for the fact that there still needs to be more done. I mean, a Barbie doll isn't meant to solve the world's problems, but if she's a piece in representation, then it's a part of a puzzle, a larger puzzle piece. I think that I think is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bring on the Wable Barbie collab.
Oh,
That's
wait
the
a
next.
minute. Oh my goodness. If that happened, I was a big Barbie fan growing up, so I would absolutely love that. But I saw so many videos of young girls playing with Autistic Barbie, and I was like, this is what it's like. Just being able to see that representation at a young age could change a lot for someone. And I thought it was really beautiful. And to see a brand as big as Mattel say, putting their hand up and going, hey everyone, we need to pay attention to this community. And here's what we're doing, I thought was an indication of a really good thing. Um, and hopefully we see more of it. But it's always going to spark conversation. Not everyone's going to agree. Not everyone's going to think that it was the right step or the most important thing. But I don't think it had to be. I think it could be a step of progress in its own right, without putting the onus of, Barbie was never going to solve the underemployment problem or loneliness problem. But if she can be a small piece in representation, then maybe that's what she can be, without having to solve the rest of the problems. I think that's up to all of us, not just Barbie. Yeah,
Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And again, good luck with your continued expansion through the US, through Canada, through the UK, and hey, maybe we can chat again soon, because I think
absolutely.
there's a lot more to say.